Trends in the knife world come and go, just as with anything out there. And today, we're asking you, what are the trends you wish would just disappear in 2026? Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the KnifeCenter. Welcome to KniFAQ episode 243 of the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. As usual, that's Thomas behind the camera with probably a random word he's going to say.
Integer.
And he did, just like usual. So what we do is we answer your questions. We get those questions from the comment section below this video. And today I collected a bunch of your comments, kind of been, pulling them together for this first episode of the new year, talking about trends, talking about fads, things that you're just plain sick of, because the internet is nothing if not opinionated. So now is your chance to be even further encouraged to share your opinionated opinions in the comments. Apart from what I show here, what are the trends you wish would just go away for the new year? First question, actually first two comments I'm going to lump together. I'm going to read them both and then respond. First is from IO5896. So tired of the MagnaCut fad. Not everything needs to be in MagnaCut steel. And then meaningless name 123, because 1 through 122 were taken apparently. I can't wait for the D2 tool steel fad to die out. So many nice new budget knives come only in D2 now. I'm going to get maybe just a little tiny bit snarky with some of my replies today. These two comments, this is why we can't have nice things. Let me explain. MagnaCut, sure. On a lot of knives nowadays, both new and old designs, including this 562 from Zero Tolerance. Why? Because it is quite simply the most well-balanced stainless steel available. It just is. It is both a stainless that has high edge retention and high toughness. Most other stainlesses can only pick one or two of those categories to really concentrate on. It's a lot tougher than stuff like S30V, but has similar or better edge retention than that steel. So the question really becomes, if you're going to choose something that's not MagnaCut, it's why not MagnaCut in a way? If you're basing it just purely on steel performance. If you're shooting for something that has you want higher edge retention and the toughness is not as much of a factor, yeah, go for it. There are steels that make sense as an alternative, like S90V, I about said K390, but that's not a stainless. But S90V is a perfect example and a perfect complement to something like MagnaCut because it offers higher edge retention, but doesn't have the same kind of toughness. But if you're going to substitute, you put something out in like S30V, S35, it's almost a question of why. Not to say it's a bad choice, but what do those steels do better than what MagnaCut can do? And honestly, the answer, if you're just basing purely on performance, not a lot. So there's a reason it's on a lot of things. But will we see some more steels take over? I don't know. Almost always, right? We're always improving upon things, aren't we? Hopefully. And the D2 comment, this knife right here, the Sencut Silor, $39.50 with a 3.5 inch or almost 3.5 inch D2 blade and great quality. This is an amazing knife for the money. And part of that is honestly because it has D2 steel. Now I understand, like when things get saturated, such as MagnaCut does or D2 does, collectors and people who like to chase the newest thing, it can get kind of boring. But if we're talking about knives as a tool, like a pure performance-driven item, rather than the fun of collecting, both are valid certainly. It's another one of those things like, why would you choose anything but D2 for a budget knife now that D2 is more affordable? And if you want stainlessness or higher toughness, those are good reasons to choose something else. And it's partly the reason I think we're seeing something like 14C28N from Sandvik starting to make inroads recently into the more, they're taking over some of what might have been a D2 knife 2 years ago. We're seeing it in some of those stainlesses now. So when I look at knives like this Sencut Silor, it makes me think of like when I started getting into knives, and seeing how good we have it nowadays, because D2 offers great edge retention, gets close to stuff like S30V. But when I was first getting into knives, it was before stuff like the Rat 2 and D2 came out, which brought it to a newer, lower price. Most of the time, a D2 blade wasn't that much less expensive than an S30V blade. And it's not stainless, it's not as tough as S30V, and it's a little more difficult to sharpen, or at least it has that stereotype. So it's like, why would I choose D2 when for just a little bit more I could get S30V? But as soon as they knocked the price down to half or even more, D2 starts to make a lot more sense. The fact that you can get that kind of edge retention on a $20 to $30 knives even nowadays with that steel, that's a really good thing. So if we're talking about pure performance, maybe it looks boring that everything's D2, but daggone it, it is like a great choice for actual use. Unless you want stainless or higher toughness. But trends, I think we're seeing more 14C28N, I mentioned that. Might be making even further inroads into the budget knife space. But okay, what steels do you want to see go away or make a resurgence? Drop it in the comments. Next question. Doug Corum, when will the fad of huge pocket knives give way to gentleman-sized pocket knives, 3 inches or less folded? I got a huge pocket knife and a 3 inches or less folded is really small, you guys. This is the Rosecraft Piney River Peanut in D2 steel. And this is the Recon M1 in MagnaCut steel. The snark continues. I'm again going to read this in conjunction with the next comment from the 4CP. Most knives are undersized because of the bug-out toy fad. So this is undersized to the 4CP, and yet this is oversized to Doug Corum. This is the thing. They don't make a bug-out in D2 or in MagnaCut, so it's S30V in this case. This is a comment that comes up anytime we show any kind of smaller knife. We'll have big knife fanatics, of which, don't count me out of the list of people who like big pocket knives. But I hear the word trend or fad thrown around. When will this trend of smaller knives go away? Only a big knife can do real work. Putting aside the fact that for the bulk of history, smaller pocket knives are by far more numerous than big pocket knives ever were. If anything, this is the fad. I still like it, but let's be honest with what's going on here. And, the idea that if someone carries a smaller knife, they can't get real work done. Our granddads did just fine. Thank you very much with small knives. But yeah, if anything, the big knife genre, I would say, is the fad. But I got room for both in my life.
Why not carry both?
Why not carry both? Thomas actually carries a bug out most days and a bigger folder most days. He carries 2. So he puts us all to shame, I guess. And a Leatherman. There you go. But still, like 3 inches or less closed. Yeah, I could get most of, if I'm being honest, most of my EDC needs done with this. And that's the thing. If you can get your needs done with something like this, what does that say if you still choose to carry a bigger knife? Is that not the more dishonest thing? I don't know. I would prefer a slightly smaller knife than this, however. I like a 3-inch blade. What can I say? Anyway, I'm getting snarky there. The point is, the small knife trend that some people say we're seeing now is more of a return to norm than the big knife trend that really took off. There were big pocket knives before the 80s, certainly, but that trend kind of really, I think, took off around the 80s and after. Anyway, Jay's Good 10 says, let's get over the black everything trend, please. I hear you, man. You've heard us say this on the channel before. We see a lot of knives here in our job, and the bulk of them are black, including this Heretic right here. This is what's the Manticore, right? I almost said Wraith. Yeah, sorry, that's the Hydra V4.
Other mythical creature.
The other mythical creature. So I always appreciate when we see things that aren't all blacked out. Like this Hydra V4. Yes, there is a broad gap in between this black version and this cell shade version at the top that has color. You don't have to go to this extreme. But at the end of the day, there's kind of a reason things are black. is because that's what sells almost always the most. You know, even though this blue-handled folder released with just one variant, well, they had a partial serration at the time too, with just a blue handle and no black option in the lineup, sold like hotcakes and changed the industry. But the thing is, like, they sell. So you have a color like this, which can certainly sell quickly, and certainly the cell shade versions of this did sell very, very quickly when they first came out. But in a way, this is almost like a halo car. It's just like someone, you know, goes into the showroom because they want to see the new Corvette, and they drive out into Malibu because, you know, they can't afford a Corvette. They come, you know, this kind of thing gets attention, even if at the end of the day you buy one of these. But you might have bought one of these because you saw this. Flip side of it, I think we're seeing more color than we ever have, or at least we have in a long time in the pocket knife world, and I'm very happy about it because I like more color in my life too. So I'm with you, but also explaining like why we see that trend. Anyway, next question or comment from Robert McEwen. Seems to be a fad among certain knife makers to put a slight curve in the cutting edge. Right here, yes. Serves no advantage over a straight edge, makes it harder to sharpen, and doesn't look good to boot. There, I said it. Here, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah, you said it, buddy.
Friendly, in a friendly manner, I'll tell you, not why you're wrong, but some further explanation. By the way, this is in MagnaCut steel.
Madness is spreading.
It does serve, I'll go through your points. You say serves no advantage over a straight edge. Not quite true. The advantage here is you actually have more sharpened edge in the same finite length. So you have more edge retention as a result, basically. You're getting the advantage of more edge that has to wear out before your edge is worn out. It also, depending on how extreme it is, can kind of help gather things into the blade as you're cutting, especially when you're pulling back like so. You'll engage that belly rather nicely on the slice. What was the next one? Makes it harder to sharpen. Yes, it can certainly do that. This one is not so extreme where it might get real difficult. The more extreme the recurve, yes, it can be more difficult to sharpen, especially with flat stones. And your last one, doesn't look good to boot. I'll just relay a story that has been repeated ad nauseum probably by a lot of folks. I've certainly heard it from a number of experts in the industry that I trust. I don't know why I air quoted there, like true people who've been in the industry a long time. And many custom makers will be able to tell you this. They can make the exact same knife in the standard blade with no recurve and put it right next to, on their table at a knife show, the exact same knife except it has a little recurve. And when people are coming around, the one they pick up 9 times out of 10 is the one with the recurve. So it gets attention. It means something about the look is appealing to people. So, I don't know. Just a cool anecdote to share, really. Next one, Jeremy USNCR. Hey, David, are finger choils on large knives a fad? I tend to think it's a poor knife design choice. Fad or not, I don't know. This has been going on for a good while now, and is continuing with this new release, the Kaiser Drop Bear Fix 7. And on a big knife, I kind of like a finger choil. Anything small, this is about a 6.5 inch blade. When you start to get smaller than this, I'd rather not have a finger choil because it takes away sharpened edge, absolutely. And on a smaller knife, it's already, in my opinion, balanced enough that you don't need it. But on a larger knife, choking up like that can balance things out better for more detailed work here at the heel. And that extra range, that extra length will give you more reach, perhaps some light chopping depending on the design. So I don't know if it's going away. Certainly finger choils on a lot of pocket knives are here to stay, and that's one where most of the time I would probably rather have more edge until you get way small, such as the Lil Native from Spyderco is a perfect example. This has the benefit of being very small when folded. Actually, is this a 3-inch thing or not? Let's see. Our previous question. This is like 2.9 inches. So yeah, it's a little bit bigger than 3 inches folded. Still, it's a very compact knife when folded and gives you, because of the guarded finger choil right there, a full grip. So even though you don't have a ton of length, you have the ability to push the smaller knife, a little bit harder. So I like finger choils on small knives and big knives. In between, personal preference, I usually like without, but I don't know. Is it a fad? You tell me. Natural Synthetic 777 says, need better blade to handle ratio to be the new trend. So this little native does not have a very good blade to handle ratio, but it's still really great for the reasons I mentioned. So I understand a blade to handle ratio is a good indication of visual balance, but in terms of actual utility, again, getting back to the D2 and MagnaCut, like what actually works, and maybe it's a poorer ratio in favor of more handle. But Jeffrey Lawfulbine had a perfect response to this, so I'm just going to read his answer. Blade to handle ratio is talked a lot, and it's a good metric for how compact a knife is for its given blade length. But so many reviewers value it so much that the mere idea of a longer handle is mocked and trashed as poor design. That is a trend I wish would kind of go away. The idea of a longer handle being mocked as poor design, let's do away with that. Real world, what does it do? Forget about what the ratio says. It may be that a better ratio is right for a given knife, but on another knife, maybe it's not.
So we need a handle to application ratio.
That's a weird graphic I don't think we have time to put together.
It's going to have like 5 dimensions.
Poet Fisherman says, I am a huge fan of manufacturers focusing more on the heart of the knife, blade steel geometry and heat treatment, than the scale material. I don't actually need all of my higher end bladed pocket knives to cost an extra $100 just so it has titanium scales. I hope this becomes more of a trend. So a trend you don't want to die, but one you want to lift up. Surely we're in the economy that would warrant it. Yeah, we might be. A couple good examples of ones that do. Spyderco's been doing it a long time with their lightweight handled knives, often putting higher end blade steels in it. I mentioned the Corvette earlier. That was always a good example of like a plastic car with like a big, huge engine in it. So like you're paying for the heart and the rest of it's like bonus, Artisan Cutlery is doing a little bit of that, especially with CJRB. They're putting their RPM 9 spray form steel in like $30 knives. Granted, that's not high-end steel, but it's very good steel. GeoKnife is a great example here of a new one, or a new company doing that. M390 steel on this ethereal cutter right here. It's like $80, $80, $90, something like that. There you go. Paying for the blade, the rest is just to hold on to. Ultim handles on this particular one. I think we're on the downside of that trend, certainly. That, a year ago, we were kind of cresting that trend, it seemed. So that's an interesting one. Z3WHA6. I can't wait for the pocket fixed blade fad to end. No.
I don't think you want to bark up that particular tree, buddy.
I know it's a fad recently, or and I don't want to say fad because I don't want them to go away. I've designed some pocket fixed blades. I've been beating the drum for pocket fixed blades for the better part of a decade, well before they became a fad. So I am very gratified that people are seeing why a pocket fixed blade is awesome. This is in MagnaCut, by the way. The Kaiser is not in MagnaCut, but it is all black. Same thing with the Little Native, it's all black. I forgot to mention that earlier. It was worth stopping the video to mention again, right? Just so we're all agreed. I'm sorry. Pocket fixed blades are awesome. Yeah, you're not going to get as much blade length in your pocket, although you might get more blade length than the peanut pocket or the Piney River we looked at there earlier. But they don't have parts to wear out. They don't have mechanisms to break or locks to fail, and they're a lot easier to keep clean than a folder. So I hope they're not going away anytime soon. MKM Pocket Tango, by the way, I should mention that. Crusader 50 says, personally, I don't do front flippers. I'm happy about this one, can you tell?
I'd like to see them continue.
You would. In my opinion, it is an unnatural movement, less safe, and hopefully just a fad. They also look weird. Here's the petrified fish beluga in D2 steel and all black. Is this shtick old yet? Again, getting back to the value quotient. Technically, this is K110, which is a name brand D2. $42 and some change. You got a 3.6-inch D2 blade, and it's a big, chunky, hard-working knife. I mean, what's not to like? Oh yeah, it has a front flipper. I kind of get snarky with front flippers here because I often find them a little trickier to use. Ironically, that one worked just fine right there when I did it, so I wouldn't mind if the trend went a little further away. You could, I say you could reverse flick it. I had more trouble doing that than I did front flipping in that case. Let me know your opinions of front flippers down in the comments, folks. Bring it on. All right, now we have come to our final question for the first of many episodes to come this year, which is, of course, our most seriousest question, which comes from Gregory Nichols. I've noticed that the Sword Carcass splitter is the answer to so many of the questions on KnifeAQ. It's a trend I'm guilty of, I'll admit. I'm not complaining at all. I'm just wondering, is there anything the Carcass splitter is not good for? I don't know, poop knife?
Concealed carry.
Yeah, it's not good for that, certainly. Just imagining someone trying to break up the turd and like breaking the toilet. Be a lot of fun if you did it. Took a big swing at it though. So maybe it is good at it.
Maybe pelicans use the toilet.
Ooh, oh. I don't want to be anywhere near that toilet. Anyway.
It's restless.
It craves the... No, we're not going there. That's all we got for today, folks. Keep your questions coming. Keep your most serious questions coming, and let us know what are the fads you want gone in 2026. Drop them in the comments. In the meantime, to get your hands on any of these knives in front of me, check out the links in the description, which will take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program or Sezzle or Apple Pay options at checkout. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off. Happy New Year, everyone.